There it is, the dominoes have started to fall. The Deshaun Watson sentence has finally come out. Sorry I'm releasing this like a day late. I got this little thing called work. It kind of sucks, but anyways, we're here now. Obviously going to be talking about the Deshaun Watson suspension that just got announced yesterday. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about what he did or anything regarding that. I have no say in that. I'm just strictly reacting to the impact that this has on the fantasy football landscape for this upcoming year. Now, with that said, let's roll the intro and get into it. Everybody probably knows now it was a 6-game suspension. A caveat with this is the first ruling with the new CBA, and there's a judge that actually gave this ruling, and now the NFL and the NFLPA, which is the NFL Players Association, the people that represent the players, which are normally players themselves, they can both appeal this ruling. The NFLPA has already said that they're not going to appeal this. So the only scenario that could happen during an appeal would be from the NFL, which would be to get this increased longer. So there still is a chance of that happening. We're just going to have to wait and see. I think they have 72 hours from the suspension being announced. So that'd be like Thursday morning. That will also set a precedent for how these rulings will be taken in the future. So it's really going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Crazy how a case this high profile and this important was the first one for this new structure. But now the actual impact on the fantasy players regarding this. I think this is going to give me a slight bump for all the players. I was assuming that the suspension was going to be longer. I originally thought it was going to be around this length, but then as time has gone on, it seemed like it was going to be longer, but it ended up being 6 games. So let's talk about the quarterback first. Jacoby Brissett is going to be playing for the first 6 weeks for the Cleveland Browns. Now, he's obviously not somebody who's going to be usable for fantasy football. He played 5 games last year as a starter for the Dolphins and averaged just over 13 fantasy points in those games. Never threw for over 300 yards, only threw for 5 total passing touchdowns in that time. And although he's known as an athlete and kind of a running quarterback, only rushed for over 10 yards once. So really not somebody who's going to be usable for fantasy. I think he is a good veteran and a smart player. He's going to have this entire training camp and offseason to get reps with the first team. So he'll know the offense and he'll know the players. And I think it'll make people like Nick Chubb a lot more serviceable when Deshaun Watson is out. But I don't really see people like Amari Cooper and Kareem Hunt being super valuable while Jacoby is a starter. Once Deshaun is back, though, everyone on that team I think is going to be extremely valuable for fantasy. In case you guys forgot, Deshaun Watson is absolutely ridiculous at football. The last time we saw him played, he finished as a quarterback 5. He threw for about 4,800 yards, which led the league that year. 33 touchdowns, ran for almost 500 rushing yards. He's just one of those dual threat quarterbacks that can really do everything when it comes to passing and rushing. And he's finished as a top 5 quarterback practically every single year of his career. But he is going to be out for the first 6 games of the year. And he also hasn't played football in over a year, so there's definitely going to be some rust there. He's with a whole new team, so there's definitely still a lot of worries there. I'm probably going to be moving him to around my quarterback 14, 15 area. I think behind that tier of like Dak Prescott, Aaron Rodgers, Trey Lance. After those guys, the next tier is Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins. So I think you can take Deshaun Watson over any of those guys because he has way more upside, but you're just going to have to hold on to him. So it really depends about, what type of team you're constructing. I think if you do go for one of those later round guys, and then you want to get someone who has the upside, that'd be a great person to pair him. So if you get someone like Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr, then I would love getting Deshaun Watson as a second quarterback. I think there's a good chance that Deshaun Watson can get hyped up a lot, and his ADP might shoot way up, and he could be getting drafted anywhere as high as like a top 10 quarterback or around that area. But I'm probably going to have him around my quarterback 14. We'll see how the time goes on, but as of right now, that's kind of how I feel about it. I do think he will be a top 10 quarterback once he is back, but I do see in the range of outcomes of him not doing that and him taking time to get acclimated to this new team and everything else that's gone on with him. I'll briefly touch on David Njoku just because I think that makes him someone you can actually draft if you want to take him with your like last pick in the draft, or just someone you kind of just want to keep your eye on. Not really much to say there, but obviously he's going to be a threat once Deshaun Watson is back. But until then, he's not really going to be usable. So it makes a lot of sense that you wouldn't want to stash him on your team and take up that roster spot that entire time. But once like week 6 and 7 rolls around, I know that he's going to be a top waiver wire pickup. Depends if you want to play that game from the start or if you wanted to try to get him once the season goes on. Now, it's really hard to know what other wide receivers besides Amari Cooper are really going to benefit from this. There's just a bunch of unproven guys there. Donovan Peoples-Jones definitely has the second most proven ability on that team, but they have some other young guys like Anthony Schwartz and David Bell, so we'll really see if any of them can show through. Obviously, though, the clear winner is Amari Cooper. He's going to be unbelievable, I assume, once Deshaun Watson is back. The issue is obviously we don't know how viable he's going to be in that time until he's back with Jacoby Brissett. This is, again, going to come down to team making makeup. You know, if you go kind of deep on wide receivers, and you can take the chance of waiting a little bit and seeing what's going to happen, and Amari Cooper is going to be a great pickup. But if you go late on wide receivers and you need like a wide receiver too, he's probably not going to be your guy because he's not going to produce. Yeah, I don't think he'll be really fantasy relevant for the first 6 weeks, which is a long stretch of time. And if you don't, you know, if your team isn't good those first 6 weeks, you can completely ruin your playoff chances. So you have to just understand your team composition and decide how you want to play it. I definitely think he can easily finish as a top 15 wide receiver once Deshaun Watson is back, but I'm worried about him even being a top 36 wide receiver before he's back. So I'll probably be taking him in the mid to early 20s would be my guess. That's kind of where I have him eyeballed right now. I'll have to spend some more time looking at more numbers and actually thinking about it to decide where I'm definitely going to put him, but that's kind of where my thought has gone to right now. There's a lot of other question marks in that area, so another person who you can kind of add into that group, I think he's going to fit in right there. And then depending on team makeup, you can go one way or the other. One of the biggest winners from this entire signing, I think, is Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb, I definitely think will be the most fantasy relevant in those first 6 weeks. I think the offense is going to completely run through him. Obviously, Kareem Hunt will still get a lot of work, and they'll use him in the short passing game. But I think the offense is primarily going to run through Nick Chubb because they're going to be doing a bunch of different RPOs and handoffs and trying to limit Jacoby Brissett's passing and passing downfield as much as possible. They have a great offensive line, and Nick Chubb has just shown year over year that he is one of the best running backs in the NFL. That doesn't translate for fantasy, obviously, because he doesn't get that receiving work, but pure talent-wise, running between the tackles, he has a definite argument of being the best in the NFL. He's always been really good with efficiency, really good with touchdowns. And so then once Deshaun Watson comes back, he's going to be a part of the best offense that he's ever had. And he's finished always that running back kind of 8 to 10 area. So I think he can easily finish there or higher once Deshaun Watson is back. You know, I think the top 5 is a little bit tough just because he won't get utilized in the way, but I think he could easily finish around that like running back 8 to 7 area once Deshaun Watson is back. I still think he'll be a super viable running back 2 up until that time. So he's someone who I see as a clear winner for this. I don't know exactly as well for him. I could see moving him up to my running back 12 behind Aaron Jones right now. Depending on if Alvin Kamara gets suspended, I could also move him to running back 10 because then obviously Alvin would shoot down. He might not be that high, but I definitely see him as at least a top. I mean, I already had, I think, ranked in my running back 15, but I'm probably going to move him to my running back 12 or 13. So I think it's a huge winner from this. Kareem Hunt will also obviously be a winner from this. I think the offense is going to go through the running backs, and while he might not be utilized as much once he comes back, he's going to be probably at least a top 20, 24 running back. So I think probably right around in that range that there's a whole group of people kind of like the Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Damian Harris, Tony Paul, that whole area. I could easily see Kareem Hunt being at the top of that tier, maybe even a little bit higher into like the Miles Sanders, Antonio Gibson area, but I'm not quite sure about that, but that's kind of the range that I see him in. Like I said, though, we do still have to wait to see if there's going to be an appeal from the NFL side on this ruling. I have absolutely no idea if that's going to happen or not. I'll make another video, obviously, if there is, and what the decision is from that. But these are my first initial thoughts and all on the impact from this. I think there's some other dominoes that are going to fall now, and more stuff will start to happen, even though the Debo signing just did happen yesterday as well, or on Sunday, I mean. Pretty crazy stuff, though. Finally happened, and we've been talking about this forever now. So I think it's good for this to kind of just be almost, not quite there, but almost put to bed, and we can move on from it. People are going to be talking about this for the rest of the NFL's history. This is an absolutely crazy time, a crazy event that's going on. But in terms of for fantasy football, it's nice to have this part being finalized, and we can really figure out what's going on, where everyone's situated at, and I can start to finalize all of my feelings and decisions on everybody. So let me know what you think, if you disagree with me, if you agree with me. More content coming soon, so make sure to subscribe, drop a like on this video, helps out a ton, comment, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later, y'all.